Hello and good evening. I'm Melissa Idris.
And I'm Sharad Kuttan.
Welcome to Consider This, the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Ahead of nomination day for the Chini by-election tomorrow, Saturday the 20th of June, tonight on the show we're going to be looking at how the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in new norms for the electoral process. Now, earlier this week we had the Election Commission release some new SOPs for campaigning, which now no longer permits all the expected trimmings of an election. So no charamas, no gatherings, no walkabouts, no house-to-house visits or any other type of physical campaigning. Joining us on the line now, we have Azmi Sharom, Deputy Chairman of the Election Commission. Azmi, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Now, does this ban on physical campaigning from the EC in any way diminish the democratic nature of the electoral process, especially given the absence of reaching out to voters in person and those perhaps not on social media?
Actually, that's changed.
Oh.
Because I think the chairman had already said that the SOPs are not cast in stone. And we, right now, are probably going to allow gatherings and walkabouts, but under very strict rules. So, for example, if you were to have a charama, then it has to be inside a closed area. It cannot be in an open area anymore. And there has to be social distancing. And depending on the size of the place, the maximum number of people is 250. And I think we're going to be allowing walkabouts and visiting people's homes as well. But again, very strict rules, no touching, face masks, and a very small entourage. So not your usual 20, 30 entourage, but limited to, I believe, 3 people in total.
Okay.
Azmi, is the design of the SOPs specific to the nature of Chini as a constituency, whether it's, is it semi-rural or rural constituency, and the lay of the land? Is that what is determining the SOPs?
No, the SOP is being determined by our discussions with the relevant agencies and ministries as to what is safe. Because I think, by and large, it's true. What you said earlier was true. A place like Chini, voters would probably have less access to the internet and other technological advances. However, that's not the reason why we decided to do things the way they're doing it now. We are considering the safety of the public first and foremost.
All right. So you said that now walkabouts and gatherings are allowed, but up to 250 people at any one time. How are you going to ensure this? I mean, is someone going to stand about and count 250 people? If a candidate or a party is found to have contravened these SOPs, is that punishable by the EC? Are these merely guidelines or are they enforceable by law?
Well, these would be the conditions of the permits, which would be given out by the police. The EC doesn't give permits for charamas and the like, right? It's not within our ambit to do so. It's the police who do this, and they can put any conditions, reasonable conditions, which they wish. So this would be part of the permit system. And if you don't obey it, then of course, if it's discovered, then you would be in breach of your permit, and that would bring its own punitive measures, depending on the law. But one hopes that, political parties have a certain degree of responsibility and don't flout the law, because we're not doing this for fun. We're not doing this to restrict people just because we want to. This is being done because this is what's necessary at this time.
Azmi, speaking of which, there was quite a bit of talk about and calls for actually a no contest in this by-election using COVID-19 as the main reason. Do you think that argument that was made by many political parties is a sound one? Is it good for democracy to put aside the democratic process and just sort of allow the incumbent or the single person to stand to actually take the win, as it were?
I think in this case, the incumbent has passed away, so we have no choice. The seat has to be filled. But on top of that, the Constitution is very, very clear. There is no exception. It's something which I think the drafters of the Constitution never thought about. We must have an election 60 days after the seat is declared vacant or 60 days after the assembly has been dissolved. So it's not an issue where we have any say in that at all. We have no choice. We have to do this. It's the law.
But Azmi, I think the call was for others, the non-incumbent party in this instance, to stand down. There was a kind of a moral argument being made. UMNO and Barisan Nasional had won the seat. Other parties should stand down, and therefore, in the interest of public health. That's the question, really.
I see. I'm sorry. Well, that's completely up to the parties themselves. Whether it's good for democracy or not, of course, it's better to have a competition. But ultimately, that's a position that the political parties and independents will have to make for themselves. Because even if you have one independent candidate to oppose the incumbent party, then the elections must go on.
All right, Azmi, there's a lot of things to unpack tonight, but we're going to take a quick break. We'll continue this conversation in just a few minutes, so please stay on the line, and you stay with us at home on Consider This. Stay tuned. If you've just joined us, you're watching Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris. With me is Sharad Kutan. We're speaking to Azmi Sharom, Deputy Chairman for the Election Commission. Azmi, I want to shift the conversation away from the Chini by-election to the possibility of snap polls. Now, talk of the possibility of snap polls seems to be gaining momentum in recent weeks. How prepared are we to hold a general election at this point in time?
The Election Commission is prepared. We've been prepared ever since the political situation became a little bit unpredictable when there was a switch in government. Since that time, we've been on alert that a snap election could be held. So we are prepared. We are preparing. So we hope that if it does happen, we will be able to do our duty.
Azmi, when we talked earlier about the SOPs that have been designed and clearly being tweaked as we go along for the Chini by-election, will the same SOPs apply now on a larger scale? Now it is going national. Will the same SOPs apply, or will there have to be regional variations, district variations? How are you guys thinking about SOPs for a general election?
The SOP will depend on the situation at the time. I mean, even, to be frank with you, even the SOP for Chini could change. If next week there's a sudden spike of COVID cases in Chini, everything will change. So if there's a general election, we don't know what the situation is going to be like. And so it's difficult for me to say with certainty what the SOP is going to be. However, if there is a COVID issue still ongoing and there's still control that has to be taken, then Chini will be a test case for us to see how we can, what we can do. My sense is that it will probably be the same thing. So, for example, social distancing at the polling center, we might even extend the polling time, so that people are more spread out when they go to vote and don't all come together. I mean, one of the things we're trying in Chini, for example, is that when you get your voter's card, and every voter gets their voter's card, we suggest a time for you to vote. So, for example, we suggest that, say you're voting national, that you go between the hours of 12 to 2. You don't have to follow it, but it's something that we strongly recommend. So, it will be a testing ground. Chini will be a testing ground in case that we need to have these kind of measures during a general election.
Azmi, are you looking at the conduct of elections in other parts of the world under the current pandemic context? We know that countries have gone, Taiwan's gone to the polls. Are you looking at their best practices?
Well, yeah, with regards to how you try to limit contact, etc. But, sorry, excuse me, but you will find that, generally speaking, the same rules will apply in different places, and particularly at the polling center itself. You know, it's going to take a long time because everybody's going to get their temperature taken. Everybody's got to disinfect their hands. We're providing plastic gloves for people to wear so that when they touch the pen, they don't get infected. Okay. So it's something which I think is pretty thorough. The measures which have been taken are pretty thorough.
Can Malaysia afford to adopt those measures, Azmi?
We have no choice. There's got to find the money somewhere. Of course, it's going to be more expensive, yeah? Okay. But if we're going to have elections, which we must, and if you want to keep our people safe, which we must, then yes, it's going to cost money, and it's something that the Treasury will just have to help us with.
Okay. So amidst all this talk about the possible snap elections, I want to ask you about the electoral roll, because in the last general elections, the inconsistencies in the electoral roll were very well documented. I think voters with the same name, same birthday, same address, voters that appear as both ordinary voter and postal voter. Has the process to clean up the electoral roll begun for the Election Commission?
Oh yes, it's been ongoing for the past year. So now, for example, we have a system of red flags. So if there's a large number of people registered at the same address, we will go and check it out. People over a certain age, we also go and investigate to see whether they're actually still alive, because sometimes the deaths are not reported. Mm-hmm. So we've been, the work to clean up the electoral roll has been ongoing ever since the present chairman took over.
Azmi, one of the perennial concerns has been a level playing field for all entrants into the competition, and the media has been, in many ways, complicit in the unevenness of that field. Has the EC a solution about evening the playing field for all incumbents, especially in a time when the contest will be much more fragmented and there'll be many more new entrants?
Yes, we are actually currently working on guidelines as to media for the media, giving the necessary airtime and space for all political parties. It is part of our reform plan where we have a committee and it is looking at this, but of course we need to engage with everybody. So it's not ready yet,
right.
but it is something which is of concern to us. We constantly remind you guys, please be fair, and not just private agencies like Astro, but also the government ones, particularly the government ones. They should be fair. And but at the moment, our job right now, what we do right now, is just to encourage and remind and plead that access is given to everybody.
Sorry, can I just clarify something, Azmi? Because the Parliamentary Special Select Committee on Election had previously proposed or suggested that the Chini by-election candidates should be given space to carry out campaigns on TV and radio. Is that what you're saying that the EC is considering? Is that the proposal that you're talking about?
Yeah, we're considering a lot of, we're considering, yes, methods and ways with which access to the media can be more fair. But like I said, it's still a work in progress. It's something that we hope to at least put forward to everybody involved, all the stakeholders, and then after that, hopefully give out guidelines. But again, we can't really force anyone to do anything. It's something that we trust that those in power in this country are concerned about democracy and fairness.
Azmi, for this proposal, do you think that the trade-off, that this could perhaps benefit those parties with brand recognition, more established parties, as opposed to, say, independents who, how would they make the connection with, the symbol on the ballot paper?
Yeah, well, I think that's probably something that we can't really do very much about. So, I mean, there have been cases of independents who have been successful because, in their locality, in their area, they're very, very well-known people. But yeah, I mean, of course, the bigger parties, more established parties will always have that kind of upper hand.
Okay, we're going to take another quick break, but after this, we're going to talk about the reform of the electoral system with the Election Commission. Stay tuned to consider this. Thank you for staying with Sharad and I on Consider This. Let's continue our conversation with the Election Commission, Deputy Chairman, Azmi Sharom, Azmi, I want to talk a little bit about the reform agenda. How far are we from implementing automatic voter registration? And when will 18-year-olds be able to vote, Azmi?
All right. The automatic registration and the 18-year-old voting age has to be enforced together. This was what Parliament said, right? So until we can get automatic registration up and running, 18-year-olds cannot as yet vote. We are foreseeing that it should be ready by the middle of next year. So automatic registration will be ready by the middle of next year, and what that means is that 18-year-olds will also be automatically registered at that time.
But Azmi, so what is holding it up? And this, you're saying essentially that in a scenario of a snap polls, we'll be expecting in the next couple of months, 18-year-olds and literally millions of young Malaysians are going to be disenfranchised.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and that's a shame. But unfortunately, this is what Parliament has decided. Yeah. Of course, if we just allow 18-year-olds to register normally, like everybody else, we could do it now. We could have done it yesterday. But the whole automatic registration thing, let's be honest here, it was a surprise. It wasn't something which the Election Commission was asking for at the time. So it rather caught us off guard. So we had to make sure that the system is safe. And the system is viable. And that takes time, unfortunately. And like I said, again, unfortunately, what has come out from Parliament is that 18-year-olds can only vote once the automatic registration system is in place. So, I can understand how young people will be really, really irritated at this, but unfortunately, our hands are tied.
I also want to touch a little bit about the Special Electoral Reform Committee, or the ERC. I know last year they were looking at ways to reform the electoral system. One of the areas they were looking at was reform of the EC to an empowered and independent EC. Will these reforms continue, Azmi? Are they independent of whomever is in the government of the day?
If you're talking about the Election Commission, yes, I believe we are independent. Independence is also a state of mind. I mean, like, you can have the best laws in the world, but if you're going to be not independent, you're going to be not independent. And I'm quite confident right now that we are. But of course, there are proposals to make us even more independent, and also proposals to make our operations more transparent, so that people can see that that the agency, the Election Commission, is an independent and free from any influence.
Azmi, previously there was a lot of criticism that the Election Commission was, had faced a lot of criticism for perhaps lacking independence. Now that you are on the inside, what do you think about the public perception of the EC?
We just have to keep on plugging away and working as honestly and as openly as possible so that the public will eventually, hopefully, start to trust the Election Commission. I can't force people to think in a particular way. We can't force people to say, oh, how wonderful they are. It's really up to us at the end of the day. And we're trying, for example, I believe we're a lot more open now. Civil society, we speak to civil society, they speak to us, they write to us directly, they ask us things, they ask us to do things, and we respond. So even before any structural or institutional changes occur, there are things that we can do to make ourselves a lot more transparent so that hopefully people will trust us.
Azmi, I understand that the Electoral Reform Committee is separate from the Election Commission, but you are a stakeholder and a voice in that. The large questions of addressing malapportionment, of changing the very nature in which government is put together, mixed proportional representation, there are all kinds of discussions there. Are those discussions on hold indefinitely, or can they still be conducted even with the reasonably volatile political situation that we have today?
All right. Well, one thing is clear. When the Election Commission, the current Election Commission, when we were put together, our chair decided, and we all agreed, that as far as reform is concerned, the Election Commission per se, we will only be looking at and studying the things which are within our ambit of power. That means to say what we are allowed to do under the Constitution. So the Election Commission ourselves, we do not look at the political system as a whole. We're not looking at should we have a proportional representation and things like that. That's entirely something which the ERC is doing, but the EC, we've decided not to be involved in that. Is it going to go on? I'm not quite sure because things seem to be rather up in the air at the moment. I believe the ERC has submitted their preliminary report, and I think their final report is supposed to be due at the end of the year. It must be stressed here that yes, they do speak to us and we do speak to them, but they are their own body.
I'm wondering, you said that you're not looking at the whole kind of political system as a whole. Does that in any way kind of insulate you from any political pressure from the top? Because we've seen changes in the leadership of GLCs and other government agencies recently. Can we expect changes at the EC as well?
What do you think? You think it change us?
Yes.
It's a bit difficult. There's a procedure that has to be followed. They have to establish a tribunal. Get rid of us, the equivalent of getting rid of a judge. It's not as easy as picking up the phone and saying, away you go. So now so far, I mean, as long as we've been behaving honestly, which I think we have, I don't see any reason why that should change.
All right, Azmi, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you tonight. Thank you for taking the time out of what I'm sure is a very busy period for the Election Commission to speak to us on Consider This. That's all the time we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris.
And I'm Sharad Kutan, signing off for the evening.
Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend and good night.